You're listening to the 40 Fit Radio podcast dedicated to the 40-plus community. Join us as we discuss the truth about fitness and health using science, reason, and the experiences of our host and content experts. Welcome to the 40 Fit Nation.
Howdy, welcome back to 40 Fit Radio. This is Coach Trent, and in just a minute, we're going to get into the show, but I wanted to give you a quick intro to what's going on today first. So the other day, Darren and I were chatting with our friend Charity, and as we do, we just got talking about coaching and training and how things are going in our lives and life philosophy and all the normal rabbit holes we go down when we start talking. And we figured at some point we would stop and record a proper podcast. And then about 20 minutes in, we realized, wait a minute, we're recording the podcast right now. So that's where we're going to run today, our conversation from last week. And even though it's not a particularly structured podcast, there's a lot of gold in here. And I think if you listen to this podcast and the podcast we did a couple weeks ago on sustainable fitness and the podcast we did last week with Charity, you'll see a common thread. And that's that we think about health and fitness here at 40 Fit in a long-term perspective. It's not just about strength training. It's not just about conditioning. It's not just about nutrition and getting lean. Those are all the foundations of health and fitness, definitely. But it's not everything. It's more about having a long-term perspective and finding a way to fit health and fitness into your life in a harmonious manner so that you'll do it and so that you're healthy and functional and feeling good, not just tomorrow, not just next month, but a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And even though in the long term, for all of us, the result is decline until the end, we're looking for as much functionality and as much usefulness in our life as we can get for as long as we can get it. But in order to do that, we've got to think about health and fitness with both a short-term and a long-term mindset. And as we discuss in this podcast, a lot of times coaches, especially younger coaches, can get pulled into a myopic mindset where we're looking for the next PR, or we're looking for the next training cycle, or we're looking at training cycles over the course of months instead of years. And if we're not careful, we can end up missing the forest for the trees. Helping people get fit and find a training model that, I hate to say it, quote unquote, works for them is actually a pretty important part of this thing, this fitness thing that we're trying to do here. And that means that you still have to strength train. You still need to get strong. That's still the foundation of what we do. You still need to do some conditioning. You still need to have a reasonably good diet for your body composition goals and to support your everyday function. But you also have to think about, what have you got in the tank? What's the state of your body? And what is the state of your body that you want in the long term, 5, 10 plus years from now? That's going to change over time. And so the way that you approach your training is going to have to change over time. So anyway, I'll quit rambling. We'll get to the show. That's just a quick overview of some of the things we talked about today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you like it, let us know, info@40fit.com. And we'll do some more of these. We'll just kind of do these unscripted, loose Coach's Corner episodes. All right, let's get to it.
All right. But when we talk about programming, we'll get into our podcast here in just a second, but we can record this too and just have this for thoughts. But, we all work on this thought process that barbell training is what all older people should be doing. And I don't disagree with that. I think that that's true. I'm just not real sure that it should be coming in the form and in the programming model and the volume and intensity that most barbell coaches are using.
Yeah.
I think if you look at Sullivan's book, and Sullivan's book probably begins to highlight this better than any and kind of elucidates this or shines light on this better than anything else. And that is that volume and intensity, you have to be very careful with volume and intensity with the older population over 40, and I would say over 40, but really probably it's not necessarily chronological health as much as it is biological health. If you have an individual that's 45 years old and they have the body of a 60-year-old, then you have to consider that.
Right.
And so if you have an individual that's 40 years old, 45 years old, or 50 years old, and they have a body of a 35-year-old, then you can consider that too. But recovery resources are somewhat self-limiting based on biological and chronological age combined together. So, but when you think about programming, I think one of the things that we have to think about is the fact that getting stronger and putting heavy loads on the joints, there is a rate limiting step there. There is a slowly decreasing reduction in return on investment. And that is that the number one limiting factor for older individuals in training is joint health.
Yeah.
It's not muscular health. It's not tendon health. It's not connective tissue. It's joint health. Joints are what keep us from being able to go heavy for a long period of time in our life. Now, obviously sarcopenia and all those other things, but pain, when pain enters the picture and the joints start bothering you, there's an intuitive voice in your mind that says, this hurts. I'm not healthy anymore. If being healthy is standing up from a chair and my knees hurt so bad it takes me 5 minutes to get to where I can walk normally again, I don't want to be healthy. I don't want to be strong. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that where a lot of younger, less experienced barbell coaches run into problems is that they don't remember that your job is to make someone strong. But my job as a coach, as a real coach, is to make someone strong and keep them strong.
Yeah, right.
For a long, long period of time.
Right.
And to do that, I have to ensure that I am protecting not only their muscular capacity, but their joint capacity too.
Yeah,
so I think eventually we can have that conversation on our podcast. We can we've talked about joint health before, but I'm going to tell you as a 53-year-old athlete, and I know Scott will echo this too. Scott's not quite my age, but I know his body, he's
It's not great.
Yeah.
Poor man. He's living on Voltaren gel.
Yeah. So the real thing that stops me from training harder is my knees and my joints and my back.
Yeah.
It's and it's my joints. It's not my muscles. My muscles are fine.
Yeah. That Mike here at the gym,
Yeah.
he's a great example of that too. Big, strong guy. Unusually, Cliff is the opposite of that, right? Like Cliff is just like keeps trucking, but
Cliff's never done anything in his life and he hadn't used up his joints
that's
either.
part of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Mike's
there
worked
you
on his
go.
feet all
My orthopedist
40
friend
years.
says, I think we got it all wrong. My orthopedist friend Dr. Hankey.
Yeah.
I love him.
He's been a beast all of his life in regards to training and events and sports and other things. And he says it this way. He says, I think we got it all wrong as men and women. And he says, especially as men, because he said, that's the only way I can think. He said, man, I wish I wouldn't have used my body up so much when I was younger. Maybe we just use it up a little bit when we're younger. And then when we get 40, then we start crushing it.
Yeah.
And then we have all that joint health left and we have all that capacity left. And I was like, yeah, man. I mean, I know guys look at a pro NFL running back at 40.
Yeah.
Their knees are
wrecked.
toast.
They're trashed.
They're wrecked. Yeah.
They're just trash.
I don't know if you've ever watched an NBA player who's 50 years old or
my
older
gosh.
stand up from a chair.
Magic Johnson, they used to make him like stand up and do like point on the screen and stuff. And the poor guy, like his legs are just
Your knees are just
rickety.
trashed,
Yeah.
And so I think that's a conversation that we need to have in the strength community and recognize that maybe what we thought we could do with these individuals to make them superhuman again is really,
Yeah, there's
not so superhuman.
You have to walk that line between their phenotype and their phenotypic development because you're right. Like if there's a sweet spot because if that guy who's 60 did nothing between 20 and 55, they just lowered their ceiling for function quite significantly, right?
Yeah, I know that you can get. I get it. You can be crazy strong and everything. Youth is a wonderful thing. Testosterone and growth hormone and IGF and DHEA and all those hormones that make us superhuman when we're young and we're growing, it's a wonderful thing. But at some point, all of that growing environment stops, and now we get into a declining environment and a reparative environment.
Right. It's like anything else. If you take the ticket, there is a consequence.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
That's life, period. And people forget this. It does not matter the choices you make now, there's always an effect down the road.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you're going to push it, like I will have some residual effects. I've already had one shoulder surgery.
Yep.
This has probably been a good year to 2020 for me in terms of training, not because I'm getting stronger, because it's made me slow
Force
down.
you to slow down.
Yeah,
That's right.
Well, I wonder sometimes if the fact that I've had, started that audio business and then started coaching, and I've had 2 years where I just ended up having to redo the same sort of phase of training multiple times. Like I've rarely gotten out of a 1 week microcycle.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that I've just kind of I've redone all of these training cycles over the years because I'll have to back off and come back. If I've actually ended up healthier,
I don't think
in my tissue health,
exactly,
because now it's like I'm hitting weights that I'm hitting PRs now.
Yeah.
But not huge PRs. And I've gone over territory that I've been to 3 or 4 times now in the last month or two. But the difference in how I feel now when I'm taking out heavy weights is very different from a year or two ago.
Well, we've talked about this.
I think my tissue health is better.
We talked about this in prior podcasts too, is that your joints and your connective tissue adapt over time to loads, and the muscular growth can far exceed and outpace the connective tissue and joint health.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, with some clients, I tell them, hey, your tendons are catching up. Your tendons grow slower than your muscle belly does. And so your tendons are catching up. And so you can strain tendons and pull tendons and get tendonitis and all those things. That's from overuse, or many times you're pacing out the growth with the stimulus and the stress. You're pacing out the growth of the tendon and the tendon health, because the muscle can advance so much quicker.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that as I get older, it's kind of funny, as I get older and older and older every minute of every day, every second of every minute. As I get older, I realize that less is more for me.
Yeah.
And I hate that, because I want to have a 500-pound squat, and I want to have a 600-pound deadlift. But I recognize what I have to do that is probably, I'm not going to be healthy anymore, because I just don't have, my knees have seen enough competition, enough gymnastics, enough hard work. My shoulders have seen enough of that. My back has definitely seen enough of that to where I have to make a decision. And I think we have to create a T-shirt, and the T-shirt's going to say 40 Fit on the front, and on the back it's going to say, I found the sweet spot.
That'd be a good
Sweet
one.
spot.
I mean, I found the sweet spot. And
It should just be a circle that says sweet.
Yes, exactly.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. Sweet spot. What it should have is a circle with the arrows in all different directions. It says sweet spot.
Sweet
Oh
spot.
my
No,
gosh.
mine's just going to point down.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. It's like, I found the G spot.
Well, then I want 2
the G
arrows.
spot of fitness. I found the G spot of fitness. That's it.
Oh my goodness.
That sounds like an
t-shirt.
infomercial.
Yeah.
That's the T-shirt. Hi, guys. This is Coach D. And if you want to find the G-spot of fitness, then I've got the program for you to get abs and to get the ladies. And
That's terrible. One pill a day.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think, that's I think a lot of these guys, I mean, okay, here's the way I'll say this. Look at all the experts in our field and watch them in strength coaching and watch them move.
Right.
It's not good.
Look at a lot of the coaches that are older coaches that have been lifting for a long, long time, and look at the way we move, and look at our health. And I'm not so sure that the program we're selling, in the way that we sell it on the average for the young and old, is really as effective as we think it is. I think it's probably much more. I hate to say this, and maybe this is a psychological funk I'm in, but I think we should be thinking much more about moderation.
So yes, now this is so funny. My brain was on all night. This is when it comes down to, who are you training? Are you training the person that's got some genetic potential and just wants to crush it, and that they're going to win? They are the athlete, the superhuman. They make the choice. But the majority of people that you're running into and you're training with, they are not that. And I think with us being the experts, and we've been in it, we've seen it, we've lived it, those people are never going to punch that ticket. So it's your job to do back what Darren was saying. We just want to keep them strong enough to keep their independence.
Yeah,
That's the job.
And sometimes I run into this with the guys, usually the guys that are, more in like their late 30s, 40s, where they have absorbed this idea that they have to be like, I'm a pussy unless I deadlift 500.
Right.
And it's like, bro, like, is it possible? Yeah, it's probably possible for you, but that's a long road, and it's a road you may not want to go down. Because here's what it might take to get that for you.
That's right. You become a lonely person. When I'm training for nationals, I'm not a nice person because I'm not cooking meals for my family. I'm in the gym, 4 or 5 days out of the week. I don't even eat with them because I'm on diet control. Let's just call it that, lifestyle. I mean, I'm on a totally different plane. I'm like, I might as well be single living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what it takes.
And maybe we're all just bitching and moaning here, but I do think that to train the older individual, you have to understand the life cycle of the organism.
Yeah.
That's the key. That's the key concept there. You have to understand the life cycle of the organism. Everyone is born, hopefully. Everyone grows to full maturity through adolescence and through the growth cycle. Everyone stops growing. And then everyone lives and gradually declines. And then we all end up in Mother Earth, as a lot of people like to call it. We all end up dead. And so there's a life cycle there. And on average, it's about 80 years. 76 years, I think, is like kind of like the average for a male or something like that.
Yes, Scott loves to remind me of that.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. So when you think about it, there's a limited timeline here, and there's a limited life cycle here. Our goal as strength coaches, or at least I'm not saying our goal. I'm not speaking to the community of strength coaches at large. I'm not speaking to starting strength coaches at large, barbell logic coaches at large. I'm speaking to the people who are following 40 Fit. My goal is for our organization is to promote a model that maintains the highest level of quality of life and capacity for individuals as long as we can based on their individual genetic blueprint.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That is the goal, to find the sweet spot in programming, diet and lifestyle habits, and their genetics, and find something that works. And, in my ladies class that we have here, I'm always having to tweak things and change things because, I've got my 67-year-old client, Beth, and maybe she's 68. I think she just turned 68. I always get her age wrong.
You're always a year off.
I'm always a year off. It's so weird. Hey,
I'm sure she loves that.
I told her at least I'm a year younger, not a year older. But I think she's 68. But we kind of start and stop. And we don't ever stop, but we kind of start, go through a progression and restart and change things up, add some assistive exercises in, do some accessory stuff, go back to the compound lifts. We're always doing the compound lifts throughout the week, but I control that volume because I'm aware of the fact that she may be rocking and rolling now, but I don't want to use up her joint health. And I'm sorry that there's this concept that a lot of people don't understand. And my orthopedist friend, Dr. Hankey, says it all the time. He says, people don't get it, that your joints, you only got so much cartilage in that joint. And wearing and tearing it eventually goes away. And the solution for that is a total joint replacement.
Yeah.
Right now, that's the best solution we have. So I think it's key that we think about our trainees and our clients as an organism that has a life cycle, and we should be trying to work within that template.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of the problem with programming that we've discussed in the broader strength community is part of it is just the way that you have to discuss programming. It's only useful to discuss programming in a model, right? Where it's like, what are the variables that we're going to be able to manipulate to create a result? And that's all well and good. You
volume,
have to have
intensity,
a model.
and exercise selection.
Yeah, you have to have a model to understand this stuff, but there's so much that goes into actually putting down a workout on paper for a real person. And there's a huge gulf between the model and the actual program. And that's where all of the art of coaching comes into and understanding this stuff.
So I tell my people all the time, I said, there's lots of ways you can look at your programming. Are you interested in making PRs every other week? Or if you're real old, sometimes it's every 4 weeks, if you're lucky. I said, or there's more to that. You can have PRs in sets, PRs in reps.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
what's your flair? What's your taste?
Total
What
work volume.
Yeah, what drives you? So it's the personality of the person.
Yes.
It's not just a programming assessment, or it's, you really have to look at the person, what drives them, and then you can do that for a while. It keeps their energy up, they're still interested, and then you can tweak to something else that they may not like, use that for a limited time, and then go back to what was working and drive them a little bit harder. But it's never a set program. It's never the same. The person's not the same. The organism changes right before our eyes from session to session.
Yeah, especially as a novice. And I think one of the things that drew me to starting strength and just the NLP was I like the scientific basis of the basics. I like the fact that there is a template there. I do believe that not everyone is a snowflake. As an early novice trainee, they don't need specific programming to that individual. I know where you're going with that, Charity, because I know your thought line there is not that. What I think we're saying here as a group basically is this: we have a template for early novice trainees that are over 40 or at any age that are trainable age. They're not 4-year-olds. And that program and that model is the novice linear progression when it comes to barbell training. There's other things outside of barbell training, but when we're talking about compound movements, the squat, the press, the deadlift, the bench press, and then adding in things like chins and barbell rows and lat pull downs and those stuff, weighted push-ups, weighted chins, those types of things. But we have a model and it works. It scientifically works with 99.9% of the people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's simple.
Right. It is. It's very simple. It's simple, hard, and effective. It really is. But after we get out of that phase of training and we've kind of reached, let's just say, maximum genetic potential for an average individual who's gone through the novice program and they've gone through maybe some iterations of heavy, light, heavy, and then we've done heavy, light, medium, and then we've maybe then transitioned slowly but surely into something like the old man Texas method or something like that. That's maybe like we do kind of a modified Texas method here, which is kind of a volume day and an intensity day, which is very similar. But you keep progressing through these iterations of programs. But at some point, you run into a wall, and that's where I think we have to be really creative. And even during that process, we have to be really creative to make sure that our program matches the individual and client's outcomes and goals.
Yeah.
What are your goals? If I'm trying to make you, like I've got another female client, she's in her 60s. This woman could probably deadlift over 300 in her 60s. She deadlifts 185 like it's nothing. The bar path has not slowed down since she started. She could squat probably in the high, she could probably squat 195 to 215 probably. Eventually she's bench pressing 90 pounds right now like it's nothing. She's 65, I think, or 6. So, she's just going through the motions, But she started to say, you know what, I noticed that my joints, I'm starting to hurt a little bit, like in my knees. And she's having some little tweaks here and there. Now it's my job as a coach to listen to what I'm hearing from her body and from her, and to ensure that I'm just not trying to make her strong.
Right.
That's, I think, what we're talking about when we're talking about modifying programming.
Well,
if they're strong, but they have poor quality of life and poor health, that's not good.
Nope.
And the other one, to your point, Charity, is that in that process, you have some people who maybe 8 weeks is all they've really got in them for novice programming. And not from a physical standpoint, but just from a mental standpoint. That's what they've got in them. And beyond that, it's just not interested in pushing further. And that's where we got to get creative in terms of they still need to do more work to get results, but we can sneak it in there, right? Well, we don't have to drive. We don't have to iterate through all these different,
Right.
How about the female client that gets to she's 65 years old.
Yeah.
She gets to about a low 100 let's say 125 pound squat for triples.
Yeah.
She gets to a deadlift of 175 for triples, 2 sets of 3 or something like that. She's bench pressing maybe 90 to 100 pounds, and she's pressing overhead for singles in the 70s, and for triples, back off triples, she's pressing in the 60s, low 60s. She doesn't want to go any higher.
Right.
What do you do with that client? She's functionally much stronger than her cohorts.
Yeah. Right.
She is strong compared to her cohorts. Does she need to be stronger? Could I find her in a spot? Could I place her in a spot that just kind of modulates and undulates in gaining strength, losing strength? Because that's what you have to do. You can't maintain strength. At some point, there has to be a little back off and give the body some rest on loads. So could there be this sweet spot in undulation where we just kind of progressively lower and raise and lower and raise? And she just rocks and rolls for years doing that. And then we add in accessory exercises. So we added in some barbell curls and some tricep extensions and, some shaping type exercises along the way. So, I mean, I think we've got to start thinking about that type of person, because I believe that 90% of the people out there don't care about getting stronger forever.
No, they don't. They'll burn out too. They'll achieve everything they need to achieve, and then they'll just stop. And then it may be 5 years, it may be 10. They're like, oh, I'm worried now. And that's when it's hard. Like when they're that much older, let's say they stop when they're 42, and then 15 years from that, they're like, oh God, I need to do something. That's rough.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine starting LP over?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
No.
I think people need to, I did that. After my fourth back surgery, I was doing deadlifts with PVC,
Yeah.
I don't want to have to redo that again. So, but I think that we've got to start thinking about our client base a little bit more holistically, and recognize that lifting weights it's not their life. It's a part of their life that allows them to live a better life.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Now
it allows them to do their hobby.
yes.
Yes. And their hobby may become weights.
It might.
Some people, their hobby becomes weights, but I think that's I think that there's fewer of those than there are the people who just go into the gym to get the work done.
Right. I agree.
Now, one thing that I've struggled with is setting expectations. And I find it's not hard to set expectations with what can I realistically achieve in terms of weight on the bar. It's more of what can I realistically achieve with my physique, right? Because that's the one that I struggle with, because I think people way underestimate what they're capable of athletically, and way overestimate what they're capable of looking like, especially when they've gotten to 40s and 50s.
Yes.
And you come in and they're 26% body fat male and skinny fat, or, you just name it. You know the typical body, 30% body fat. And it's like,
well, we can transform that person to their best self, their best maximum genetic potential self.
Right.
We can transform that person, but I don't know what that self is going to look like. Now, after treating patients for 30 plus years and dealing with human specimens that long, I can take a look at a guy or a lady and have a fairly good idea, if they'll put in the work, kind of what they're going to look like.
Right.
You just know human gene, you just know the phenotype. You can look at if they're an endomorph, you can kind of tell if they're an ectomorph or a mesomorph, but I don't prejudge that. If you're willing to put into the work, let it be what it is. If you're willing to put in the work and you want to be a Nazi on your diet eventually, and you're a male and you want to get down to 8 to 10% body fat as a 50-year-old, and you're a mesomorph, that is very doable. If you're an endomorph, that's going to be a struggle.
Yeah,
it's going to be very, very hard.
It's probably
it's going to be very hard. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And if you're an ectomorph, we're going to have a hard time putting muscle mass and mass on you to make you look strong. So, there's all sorts of ways to look at this. And so I think you manage expectations by really just saying, let's do the work.
Yeah.
Let's do the work and see where it falls. And I haven't found a client yet that I can't help them reach their goals if they're willing to do the work and during the process, we kind of tweak their expectation level.
Yeah.
We right size it. Instead of being biggie sized, we right size it.
Right.
So we basically just slowly but surely tell them, you have ma'am, I'm sorry, but you've got broad hips and narrow shoulders. You're not going to look like a gymnast body. You're not going to have this cute little straight waist and bubble butt and narrow hips. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I'm thankful. Darren Deaton told I'm constantly, I hate my torso. It is the ugliest part of my body. Because when I look at the world, I want to be that little petite thing. Well, the only petite part on my body is I'm narrow down at the hips and I have good legs.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But I'm never going to have that tiny waist. Not going to have. That's where I hold all the fat. So I complained to Darren Deaton about this, and I have gotten an answer. It's like, look, that's what God gave you.
Yeah.
And the only way to change that is you're going to have to get it sucked out. It don't matter what you diet, what you eat. And it really doesn't. When I'm in my doing everything right, it really doesn't change that much.
Well, your legs really lean up.
My legs
and your
do.
arms lean up, and those areas lean up. But because your central deposition of body fat is in the abdominal mass, and it's not because you're obese. It's just because that's where your body likes to store your body fat. That at some point, you as you drive that body fat down, and the body composition changes. You're removing fat. But as a female and a male, your body has this genetic code, which it stores enough body fat internally in your organs, in your organ area for protection, in your what's called your lesser and greater omentum. And then it also stores body fat in your superficial tissue or in your subdermal tissue, okay? That's throughout your body. But at some point, if most of your concentration, I mean, I've got clients, and you're probably this way too. If we dieted you crazy down, you'd probably get extremely vascular in your legs, where we could see your veins in your legs. Your legs would get really lean. Your arms would get lean, but you'd still be carrying the majority of your body fat for your body's protection and needs for hormone regulation, organ function, and overall body function in your abdominal cavity.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, if you want to get rid of that, probably have it sucked out.
Yep.
I hate to say that.
I know.
Because I'm not a big cosmetic guy, but at the end of the day, and if you're a female and you don't have big breast and you want big breast, have them put in.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. You're not going to grow new breast. I mean, it's we do it in the opposite. Think about it. We do it in the opposite. So why wouldn't we consider for some individuals that say, hey, I do want to lose some of the body fat around my trunk, and I'm good with my diet. I've had a year of solid diet. I'm really particular. I train hard, but I still can't get my abdominal fat down. Suck the stuff out, man.
Yeah. Well, and it is, I think that the social aspect
Scott,
of what we do.
Could cost you some money.
Well, Jordan, here's the thing, right? So that party I was telling you about that we went to, where
that wasn't the big Roman orgy party thing.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not like Caligula.
Okay. That was awkward.
Jordan is around these women that are now they're older women too, but they're sticks.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at their arms; they're just little twigs.
Yeah.
And
I don't like that.
Jordan is jacked.
Yeah.
But the socially, I think in a lot of groups they look at Jordan, they're like, oh, she's kind of the big girl. And it's like, there's nothing big about Jordan, right? Like she's like 5'3", 5'4", maybe, muscular, strong. But that's the reality is, she puts up muscle mass in her upper body quite easily.
She's curvy.
She's always had a big butt. Now she's got a giant butt because she trains. And, it's hard to, she feels good about her body and likes the way she looks, but socially she doesn't fit the accepted norm of what a fit looking female looks like. And I think guys struggle with that too. Like masters, like if you're a big barrel chested dude and you've naturally got a thick waist and a belly, and you deposit belly fat on there because you're of Northern European descent,
right?
You can look great and like you can build that big shoulders, build that V shape, be strong, look great in a shirt, but you're always going to be like the fat guy.
When you wear a bathing suit, you're going to be you look really good in a pair of Wranglers and boots and a nice button down pearl snap. But so we talk about aesthetics all the time and everything, but my number one goal is not to make people look good. My number one goal is to make people able.
Yeah.
Reasonably able as they age. I want them to be able to do the things that they need to do, able to protect themselves, able to function, able to have capacity in their daily life, their chosen recreational sport or their recreation, whatever it is. I want to make them able. The outflowing of that and the added benefit to that is I'd like for them to look good. I'd like for them to have a sense of looking and feeling fit. I think it's good for the mind. And yes, we are very vain as a society. I don't care if it matches the societal model. I want it to match their model.
Right.
And if they look good and feel good, I always say that self-image is an inside job. We went to Mexico recently, and we're at this resort, this all-inclusive resort, and women are walking around and men are walking around. And there are some women are walking around in bathing suits that they are strutting their stuff. And they feel good and look good. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's really all that matters is how they feel about themselves. I really don't care about what other people think. And so, and there's some women you look at and you go, they probably shouldn't be wearing that, but who am I to judge?
Right.
And so, self-image is an inside job and it's a funny thing. You'll have a beautiful woman walking down the beach in a cover-up.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a woman that society would consider obese, and she's walking down the beach topless in a thong.
Right.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
So self-image is a funny thing,
Right.
And so I think our number one goal as strength coaches is to make people strong. The added benefit is that we do want to give them a better look and feel. And so that's part of something we got to consider as strength coaches too, or as fitness coaches, is to make sure that we're matching up our program goals with what the client actually wants.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, that get 6 months into training and they're like, all right, if I don't lose all this gut, like soon, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, this is all great. This is amazing. I never thought I'd achieve all this, but I'm out if I can't lose the gut. And it can be hard to kind of realign expectations,
Yeah, well, and that's really hard too, because those people that say that, they've had all the opportunity before you to work on that.
Yeah.
It is a lot harder.
Yes.
And, that's where I kind of use my platform as being a coach is we're going to change some psychology here.
Sure.
And
sure.
I have your session with me is an hour a day, and I'm not only going to be your coach, and you won't even know that I'm doing, but we're going to change how your mind thinks about making some good habits and how to do that.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be the kind of that daily reminder to make sure that you're following through. That's why I do this. I mean, it's fun getting people strong, but it means nothing if they only do it for a year and stop.
Right.
6 months.
Yeah.
No.
You want to create a lifestyle. You want them to adopt a lifestyle of health and fitness. And I think, talking about, this concept of self-image and, psychologically working on your clients, we're not just making people physically strong. We know that. We're making people mentally strong, emotionally strong, spiritually strong, whatever. Strength in the mind and in the body can be used. It's not unicompartmental. It's not isolated only to physical capacity. We all know, and we've written articles, read articles on this, right? Lifting heavy weights makes us stronger in a lot of other areas of our life. But one of the reasons why I like to tell women all the time, because I'm a flirt mostly. No, I'm just joking. I'm not. But one of the reasons I tell my wife all the time, and I tell other women all the time, a guy would rather snuggle up to a curvy girl than a bag of bones. It's because I am trying to reset expectations. I am trying to reset their dogma that they have in their mind, reset their concept of the norm, and to help them understand if you're curvy, if you're working out, you're lifting, you have a program, and you have a reasonable diet, and you're curvy, hey, love it. That's, you're healthy. And those curves are something that are, to me as a man, and I haven't found too many men that disagree with me, much more attractive than a girl that's cachectic, that's anorexic, that's extremely thin and looks like she's under-muscled. And so I have a picture on my phone of Michelle from a recent trip we did in Mexico, and she's wearing a bathing suit. She got a bunch of compliments on, and I was looking at her from the front and the back, other directions too, but I was looking at her from the front and the back.
Were you looking at the sweet spot?
Watch it. We cannot do that on this show. Oh man. And so she has lots of them. But I was looking at her and that girl's got traps.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at her from the back or the front,
Yeah.
you see her shoulders and then you see this bump of upper traps.
Yeah.
I love that
Yes,
in
yeah.
her physique. I love that. And I love the fact that she doesn't have these sloping flat shoulders
Right.
because there's no muscle mass there. Yeah. So I think we have to change. We are not figure coaches, or at least I'm not. And I'm not in that business. I am a fitness coach. I am a strength coach, and I am a lifestyle coach trying to get people to realize that we want to get you strong and able, and then we can do the other things that we need to do to hopefully improve the way your body looks for you.
Agree. I like the lifestyle coach. Yeah, I don't want to be just the strength coach. I mean, that's the foundation for me, for sure. But overall, lifestyle coach, because I want them to do the strength part until they literally go back into the earth. That's my plan.
That's so true.
Yeah. And I would refer to you as a lifestyle coach, clients, but I will say this. When we use the tagline lifestyle coach out there today, I see people on the internet and Instagram and Facebook. It triggers me. Yeah. When I see influencers, and this is a pet peeve, I've wanted to say something on social media about this, but don't tell me, show me. In other words, I don't want to see your Instagram picture doing something that is all made up. I want to really see you down and doing it, man.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're going to be a lifestyle coach, show me some lifestyle. In other words, have done something in your life. See, like I've watched you grow over the years, Charity, over the several years I've known you. And I've watched Scott he's grown in his business. And Scott's obviously a fellow coach, but also kind of mentor with him. I mean, I look up to him in a lot of areas. And so, that's a compliment, actually. And so, but I would say that there are a lot of people that say they're lifestyle coaches, but they haven't built anything. They haven't done anything. We have a world full of influencers and empty lifestyle coaches that sell their services to the masses to teach them how to be and do. But I've watched you, Charity, as an example over the years, just shape your mind and shape your mindset and grow psychologically, grow emotionally, grow your life's perspectives and your training and everything, and in your parenting skills with your girls, and go through that. That is the kind of person then you want as a lifestyle coach, the type of person that actually has done the work.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the type
you've
of
got to
person.
surround yourself with people that are on the same level, that are trying to do the same thing. If it's just like a garden. Really, we're like that. If you surround yourself with people that never take action to get anything done, well, you're going to find yourself doing the same thing. So you need to put yourself in there with a group of people that are trying to make some changes or trying to do something productive with themselves on spiritual level, physical level, the whole thing.
I totally agree.
Right.
I always hope that I'm surrounded by, in whatever context it is, people, at least a few people who are ahead of me and better than me, and a few people who are not as far along as I am, because I feel like having people around you that are better than you, they lift you up. They set the bar higher for you to reach to. But then also having people that are below you in their journey keeps you honest. I feel like it also sets the bar, because now I'm like, I know that I am someone else's bar, and there's some responsibility that comes along with that.
Rise to the expectation level of those who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Yep.
In other words, if you surround yourself with losers, you're probably going to be a loser.
I always think about Doug that we interviewed a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to reach out to him to see how he's
doing. Yes,
right?
his health's doing and everything else.
But I always think about that. It's got to be so interesting. Like, what do you do when you get to be 87, 88? Like, who is there to look up to at that point? But
that is hard, because
I'm glad he's still. I'm glad we were able to do that, though, and have people like him out there.
Sure. There comes a point. One of our friends, really good friends, Dallas, he was at this lake place, and he called us. He's like, "Oh, I got to quarantine. One of my good buddies called me, and he's got COVID. I'm taking him to the hospital."
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't probably like a day and a half later. He calls us. He's like, "Oh, I have terrible news." And another one of his buddies, Ron, he went to bed, but his wife watches TV. It's the same routine.
Yeah.
He gets up though to go check, and she had passed away.
Oh,
wow.
man.
So it comes to a point where we get up there on the totem pole, you know, mid 60s, 70s, 80s, and you're the top of the totem pole now. It
Yeah.
gets a little rough up there. And I think that's even more important that you have got to have some kind of foundation
Right.
to be mentoring someone, to still have some purpose there. Because no, we all have to admit, once we get to that age, we can't do everything we liked to do,
Yeah.
we have to slow down.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, but it's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know.
I think it's really interesting as we age, and people say that you think differently when you get like in your 50s. You think differently when you get in your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. And one of the reasons I think that is that the people that you are looking up to are advancing in age also. Like my father-in-law, mother-in-law, my parents are gone, but my father-in-law is in his 8th decade of life. And I've watched him over the last year or two, and I can see that there's a change. And he knows that there's a change. It's an unsaid conversation
Yeah.
as we're talking about things, and you just sense it. And that, as a little bit younger man, a middle-aged man myself, I start to think about the fact that I will be there sooner than I know. And like he's told me, hey, it's like a blink, man. It's like 30 years is gone, And so I know that I'll be there pretty soon too. And so I begin to start thinking about, okay, what can I do now to interact within my world that will make my life between now and then, even that much more fruitful and that much more enjoyable and capable and able. And so I think when we've done things on this podcast, or when we've done things with 40 Fit, or bringing people like you, Charity, or whatever we've done, I've tried to bathe all of those actions and movements within the organization on that type of thinking, on the fact that I'm not a 30-year-old thinker anymore. I'm not a 20-year-old thinker.
Right.
I'm not a 40-year-old thinker. I'm a 53-year-old thinker.
Yeah.
And next year I'll be a 54-year-old thinker, and things will change again. And so I think that there's a lot of insight in that thought process.
Yeah.
Now here's the whole thing that I've so thankful. What if you turn 45, 54 and you've done nothing to change your thought process? What if you were stuck?
Lots of people are.
Yeah.
That's scary, because if you stay stuck, let's say, and it could be trauma related why you're stuck, or because you think that's the good time of your life being stuck. And then you get to be 75, 80 and you still have that mindset. That's scary.
Sure.
Well,
Well,
I'm glad that I'm maturing with age.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that statement? Hell is looking back and seeing the man or woman that you could have become. That's
Right. Yeah.
really
Right.
hell. Yeah. I don't know, but something like that.
I read a thing about this is an article in the New York Times, I don't know, a month or two ago. It's talking about retirement and how I think the context was it was retirement, how entire retirement is being impacted by COVID and people having to take early retirement, that kind of thing. But one of the things was this guy who did retirement kind of coaching or consulting with people and helping them transition that were stuck in their thinking and stuck and not really sure what to do with themselves when they weren't economically productive anymore.
Right.
And one of the statistics that really stuck out to me is that people over 65 that are retired were watching about 38 hours of TV a week on average. Like a full-time job of watching television. And there is definitely I think maybe one of the things about the process of training, this is just one little link in the whole chain, but is that when you have a process like that and you can fall in love with that process, then it gives you purpose beyond the result. And that's something you can take with you in all stages of life. And of course, it's going to change just as your thinking will change as you age, but it's something you can take with you.
Sure.
And mentorship is like that. Families like that. I think we have to build our chain throughout life. It's just like we were talking about from the phenotype versus the genotype, like the phenotypic in the results of someone who starts training when they're 25 versus when they're 45. Like their ceiling is going to be higher.
Sure.
When they start younger, even if they, the same person. Well, it's kind of the same thing. If you never build that chain and you get to the end of your life, then you've got a lower ceiling of what the rest of your life can be like. So
I've not really accomplished a whole lot in life, and I know that there are people that have accomplished.
Wait, what did you just say? That you have not?
Okay, all right. So I've accomplished some things,
Trent, scratch that.
But there are always people. I've accomplished some things, but there are always people that have accomplished more. I never, ever once have measured myself by the gauge of the less. And I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Right.
Of the less. In other words, I don't, my parents used to always tell me, Darren, you need to slow down. You're going to burn out. You need to slow down. I was like, Mom and Dad, this is my speed.
Yeah.
This is the way you made me. This is my speed. This is my speed. I am a multitasker. I am a multi-doer. I usually am spinning 3 or 4 plates at once. It's just kind of the way I'm wired. It's my ADD, HDD, whatever you call it. When I was a kid, they called it hyperactivity, and they just set you in the corner and gave you licks all the time.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
I was a discipline problem for a long time. But I mean, that's just my speed. And so now I have slowed down some as I've aged, but I think that that's one of the keys to aging gracefully and being productive in life. And that is, if you're 45, 50, 55, 60, 70, whatever your age is, don't judge yourself by your cohorts, by the people around you.
That's the worst you could do.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in today's society. Mm-hmm. We have a very soft, weak, lazy society. Ask yourself, where do I want to be? And what do I need to do? What do I need to do? It's not anyone else's responsibility but mine. Self-ownership is the key here. Self-governance is the key. That is the difference in mentality when you look at our political spectrum. There are those who can do and those who want others to do. And be a doer.
Yeah.
Be a doer.
You'll feel better about
ownership.
yourself. It's an instant drug. If you become a doer, you feel better about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. The hardest part is getting started. Like you said earlier, Charity, in the broadcast, the hardest part is getting started. But once you start, don't stop. Just keep going. But make it paceable. Make it something that you can pace out over time. And I think as strength coaches, that brings us to this kind of final thought, maybe, guys. And that is this, is that we need to consider, like we've talked about, the life cycle and the timeline of our trainees in programming. When we do master's programming, we need to consider what their goals are. If I was talking to any younger coach, is build them a basic foundation of strength and mobility and capacity and reasonable cardiovascular and respiratory function. And then from there, whittle it down to what goals they have that are short-term, medium, and long-term goals.
Yeah.
And try to help them fulfill those things.
Right.
Yeah, and also let them know those goals can change. Just because they've told us. Because I think some people are really uncomfortable about that. They're like, oh, I told my coach, X. And then 3 months from saying that, the mindset's different.
Right.
Be comfortable with your coach. Communicate with your coach. We're never going to be disappointed. If you change your mind, want to go in a different direction, that does not matter to us. We have one job, get you strong. And for me, the second job is to keep you doing it, to be a doer.
Yeah. And I think that that's where as strength coaches, I've noticed that some strength coaches in the barbell world, they're very myopic. If you're not in the gym training 3 days a week, hitting the weights and making PRs, they think you're not succeeding at barbell training anymore. And my whole philosophy is that I think that's short-sighted. I think that if they're reasonably strong and they have other interest, put them on, and I hate to use this term because I know we don't say this in the barbell world, put them on a maintenance program. Or used air quotes for that, or put them on. Maybe we don't call it maintenance.
No,
maybe we
it's
just
a
call
life cycle. We put them on a life cycle program.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not maintenance.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like that term at all because it'll be taken wrong during this podcast. It's not what we're putting them on. It's a life cycle program. Sometimes it's intensified. Sometimes it's brought back down. Other times it just undulates nicely. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's good,
and it's okay.
Good. That's good. I like that. That it's a rise and fall. It's a tide, basically. It's a rising, falling of capacities over time. But overall, the overall capacity is always greater than if they hadn't trained at all.
That's right.
That's the goal. Overall, capacity is greater as they hadn't trained at all. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to call it quits for that podcast of ramblings on master's programming and all things blah, 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 blah.
We're spinning around in the ocean somewhere right now.
Yep. So, hey, thanks for joining 40 Fit and thanks for joining the 40 Fit Nation and 40 Fit Radio. You can find us at 40 Fit Radio on Instagram. I think Trent's going to start doing more stories instead of post. You kind of posted that the other day.
So if you do, if you follow us, just check our stories when a new podcast drops because you can get a link directly to Spotify. It's just like tap the thing and you go right to it.
That's pretty cool. Now, I will tell you guys, I'm beginning to become more. I'm just giving y'all a notification. I'm beginning to become more and more disconnected with the world of social media, including Facebook and Instagram's not as bad. I don't do Twitter, but you don't expect to find me there too often. It doesn't mean that we're not active and that I'm not active. Listen to our podcast and you'll get most of the information that you need from us. And then also look for other things like emails and things. If you've joined, gone to our website and joined to be a part of our email list, then we'll be sending out information to you that way. But if I could do everything we do without a single post on social media, I would.
Yeah, we prefer to live in the real world.
Yes. So if you want to get a hold of us, email us. I just popped up my email and found an email from a guy asking about our concept of daily routine habits that we posted. We did that podcast on
Fantastic,
the key to your success is hidden in your daily routine. So he wants some information. So I'm going to send him some information. I would rather interact with you in that manner.
Same here.
Yep.
Thanks, Charity, for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love having her. She's turned our podcast more female.
Good. That's good.
That's good, I guess.
Yes.
We're out here throwing bananas at each other and beating our chests. And I
love it. I love
we need some civilization here.
Yeah, we need some class.
Every now and then.
I
can get in there and get in the mud with you guys every once in a while.
Ooh, mud wrestling. Cool.
Oh, man.
All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. Later.